Hello, I am Otanthea Taylor, and I will conduct a pre-trip for you. So we'll be starting at the front of the truck. Then we'll open the hood. We'll start on the passenger side of the motor, then the driver's side of the motor, and then we'll work our way down the truck and trailer. All right, let's begin. On the front of the truck, I'll be looking at the roof, make sure there are no holes, no leaks or anything. I'll be looking at my 5 clearance lights. They are amber in color. They are properly working. Moving down to my windshield and my windshield weather strip. My windshield is not broken or cracked. There's no crack in it bigger than a quarter. My weather strip around it is not dry rotted. My door mirrors and my hood mirrors, they are properly mounted and secured. My hood is properly mounted and secured. My grill is properly mounted and secured, no debris. My headlights, high beams, low beams, and marker lights, they're all properly mounted and secured. My sensor is properly mounted and secured and clean. My license plate is properly mounted and secured and legible. And under my truck, I don't see any leaks or it's not leaning. If it is leaning, that can be an indication of a low tire, a bad suspension, or a shifted load. All right, let's move to the passenger side of the engine. Let me unlock the hood. Some people prefer to pull from the front to open the hood, but people like myself, being smaller, I live from the side. All right, in the engine compartment on the passenger side, you will do an overall view. Make sure nothing is leaking, hanging, or anything. So then we'll start with our cabin air filter. It's properly mounted and secured, and there is no debris at the top. Our windshield washer fluid, we have enough fluid in it, and our cap is on tight. Moving across to our air duct. Our air duct hose is properly mounted and secured with clamps on the top and the bottom. Moving over to our turbo, our heat shield, and our exhaust system, it's all properly mounted and secured. There's no black soot on my exhaust to indicate leaking. Moving across here is my AC compressor. It's properly mounted and secured. My AC hoses does not have any abrasions, bulges, or cuts. It is belt driven. To check my belt, I would tug on my belt to make sure there is no more than 3/4 of an inch of play on my belt. And my belt is not broken, torn, dry rotted, or anything. Below this is my alternator. My alternator is properly mounted and secured. The wires are not torn or cut. All the bolts are present. My upper radiator hose is properly mounted and secured. No abrasions, bulges, or cuts. I have clamps on both ends. They're properly secured. My AC dryer is properly mounted and secured. It's not being broken or cracked. My hot air intake is not being broken or cracked, and the rubber on it is not dry rotted or torn. My air dryer system and my governor is properly mounted and secured. All of the hoses attached to it are not, there's no abrasion, bulges, or cuts. My radiator is properly mounted and secured, not bent, broken, or cracked. My fan shroud is not bent, broken, or cracked. My fan, no blades are missing. My fan is properly mounted and secured. My bumper mount is properly mounted and secured. My frame is also properly mounted and secured, no illegal welds. My leaf spring hanger is properly mounted and secured. My leaf spring is properly mounted and secured. My U-bolts and my bump stop is properly mounted and secured. My shock absorber with the upper and lower mounts is properly mounted and secured, and there's no hydraulic fluid leaking on my shock. My leaf spring shackle in the back is properly mounted and secured. My brake chamber is properly mounted and secured. My brake hose is properly mounted and secured, no leaking. My ABS wire is not torn or frayed. My ABS sensor is properly mounted and secured. Inside my wheel, I have brake pads, a brake disc or a brake rotor. Everything is properly mounted and secured. My brake disc doesn't have any bluing to show any overheating. My inner and outer tire, there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. My tread depth on my steer tires is supposed to be 430 seconds for DOT, 530 seconds for total. My tire is beaded to the rim. My rim, there's no bends, breaks, or cracks. No illegal wells. My lug nuts, I have 10 lug nuts. They're all present. There's no rust trails or shiny metal to indicate looseness. My hub oil seal is properly mounted and secured. The cap is on tight. To check to see if I have oil, I will pop the cap off, dip my finger in. The oil should come to my first knuckle. And it's not leaking. And I have a valve stem here. It's properly mounted and secured, and I should have a rubber cap. So for the valve stem on the steer tires, I accidentally said rubber cap. It's supposed to be a metal cap. It has to be metal, as you can see. Make sure your metal cap is present and accessible on your steer tires. And my PSI on my tire is 110. And now we can move to the driver's side. On the driver's side, overall view, nothing's bent, broken, cracked, nothing is leaking. Up top, this is my coolant reservoir. It's filled to the proper level. It's properly mounted and secure and not leaking. My cap is on tight. My air filter is properly mounted and secured. There's no debris inside. My windshield wiper motor is properly mounted and secured. My windshield wiper arms, properly mounted and secured. My air valve system is properly mounted and secured. My hoses, there are no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. My fuel rail and fuel injectors, they're all properly mounted and secured. They are not leaking. My oil filler tube is properly mounted and secured. The cap is present and it's not leaking. My oil filter is properly mounted and secured and it's not leaking. My primary fuel filter is properly mounted and secured, and my fuel lines are not leaking. Moving down to my lower radiator hose, it's properly mounted and secured, no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. My water pump is properly mounted and secured, it's belt driven. My belt is not torn or frayed, and my belt has no more than 3/4 inch of play. My thermostat housing is properly mounted and secure. My secondary fuel filter, also known as the fuel water separator, is properly mounted and secured. It's not leaking, and the liquid inside is not up to the black line. My power steering fluid reservoir is properly mounted and secured. It has the proper level of power steering fluid. Both my caps are present, and there's no leaking. My hose from the power steering fluid reservoir to my power steering gearbox. The hose, there's no abrasion, bulges, or cuts. The power steering gearbox is properly mounted and secured, not leaking. My steering arm is properly mounted and secured. I have a U-joint, and a U-joint here. They're both intact, and if I twist it like this, I shouldn't get no more than 2 inches or 10 degrees of play on the 20-inch steering wheel. Moving on down, my pitman arm, my drag link, and my steering knuckle, they're all properly mounted and secured, and they're held in place with a castle nut and cotter pin. You would say the same as far as your leaf spring, U-bolts, bump stop, shock absorber, the same way you did on the other side. And this box under here, that is your oil pan. You want to make sure it's not leaking, broken, or cracked. All right. Moving on down to the side of your truck, you can see the glass side of your mirror. You want to make sure there are no illegal stickers on your mirror. You make sure it's not bent, broken, or cracked. Your side marker light is properly mounted and secured. It's properly working. Your steps are properly mounted and secured. All of your mechanics are present. There's nothing to make the driver fall or slip, and your steps can hold your weight. Opening your door, you want to make sure your door can open and close properly. Opening your door, you want to make sure you have a good amount of rubber weather strip on the frame of your door. Make sure it's not dry rotted or missing. Make sure your hinges that holds your door is properly mounted and secure, and you have a reflective light here. Make sure it's properly mounted and secure. Under my steps, I have 4 batteries. I want to make sure my batteries are properly mounted and secured. No excessive corrosion on my battery post. And I do not smell a rotten egg smell, which would indicate sulfur leaking on my batteries. Also, beside my batteries, I have my drain cables to drain my tanks off in there, and also on the other side of the batteries. Then moving out, I want to make sure my inspection sticker is up to date. My International Fuel Tax Agreement sticker is also up to date. I want to make sure my DEF tank is properly mounted and secured. My DEF tank cap is present. My DEF seal chain is also present, and the strap around my DEF tank is also properly mounted and secured, and there's no leaking on the ground. Inside my truck, I want to make sure I have a 10 BC charge fire extinguisher. I want to have 3 reflective red triangles, and also want to have 6 spare fuses inside my truck. Moving on down, I want to make sure my side skirt on my truck is properly mounted and secured. My fairing is properly mounted and secured. The brackets that hold the fairings in place is properly mounted and secured. Starting at the top, I have my 2 DOT pieces of tape up there. Make sure they are visible, they are clean. My truck number is also posted. My utility light is white, properly mounted and secured. My hose hanger or bungee cords or whatever you want to call it, you want to make sure they are properly mounted and secured. Your cab shock and your cab airbags, they are properly mounted and secure. Your shocks are not leaking. Your hoses and electrical wires that run from your truck to your trailer, they're all properly mounted and secured. Their hoses, there are no abrasion, bulges, or cuts. Your electrical wire, there is no exposed wire. While you're back here, also, you want to check your fuel tank. Make sure your cap is present. On the inside of your cap, there's a rubber strip and a safety chain. You want to make sure all of that is present, properly mounted and secured. You want to check the straps that hold your tank in place. Those are metal straps with rubber cushioning in between, and make sure your tank is not leaking. Also, you want to check your catwalk. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured. Make sure there's no debris on the catwalks to make sure the driver doesn't slip. Also in here, you have a drive shaft. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured. You have U-joints along your drive shaft. You also have the end of your exhaust pipe. Make sure it's properly mounted and secured and no black soot. All right. Facing the bulk of your trailer, make sure the bulk of your trailer, everything is properly mounted and secure. No bends, breaks, or cracks. These little things right here, they're called rivets. You want to make sure there are none missing. You cannot have more than 8 missing per panel, and they cannot be missing consecutively. Your emergency line and service line, these are glad hands. You want to make sure they're properly mounted and secured. You want to make sure that the rubber seal in between the glad hands, they're not dry rotted. Your prongs on your electrical line, make sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked, and make sure they are properly greased. Your differential is properly mounted and secured. Your torque bar is properly mounted and secured. Your frame back here is properly mounted and secured. Your cross member is properly mounted and secured. Your mud guard is properly mounted and secured, not missing. Your leaf spring hanger or mount, properly mounted and secured. Your leaf spring is properly mounted and secured. You have 2 U-bolts and a spacer is properly mounted and secured, and a shock absorber properly mounted and secured. All right, your drive tires. Your drive tires, they are 230 seconds in tread depth. There are no abrasion, bulges, or cuts. They are evenly worn across. You have 3 inches of space between your tires, and you also have no space between your rim. You also want to make sure there's no debris in between your tires, okay? On your rim, you want to make sure it's not bent, broken, or cracked. No illegal welds. You have 10 lug nuts. Make sure those are all present. No rust trails or shining streaks. Your axle seal, all your bolts are present. Your axle seal is not leaking. And your stem, your air stem, I can't see it. I think it's over here. Make sure your air stem is present. All right. Moving on to your 5th wheel. Your 5th wheel upper and lower bolts, they're properly mounted and secured, not missing. Your locking pins for your sliding fifth wheel are properly mounted and secured, and they're locked in place. Your pivot pin and your cotter key is properly mounted and secured. Your release arm is properly mounted and secured. You have an outer actuator and an inner actuator. They're both properly mounted and secured. Your outer actuator is to help slide your fifth wheel back and forth. Your inner actuator is to release your release arm in and out. Your apron of your trailer is properly mounted and secured, not bent, broken, or cracked. Your fifth wheel and your apron are flush together. There's no daylight between your fifth wheel and your apron. All right. Moving around back. Your mud flaps are properly mounted and secured. You have DOT tape across your mud flaps. You have airbags under here. Make sure there are no abrasion, bulges, or cuts. Your bell housing on your airbags is not bent, broken, or cracked. Your lights back here, you have your brake lights, tail lights, and reverse lights. They're all working properly. Also under here on your fifth wheel, right there, you can see that your locking jaw is around your kingpin. Every time you hook up, you should come under here to make sure that it's fully engaged, so you won't drop your trailer. And that's it for under the tractor. You want to make sure, back on your trailer, make sure your inspection stickers are up to date. Your trailer birth certificate, or when the trailer was manufactured, is not older than 10 years. Your registration bubble, make sure your paperwork inside of there matches the trailer. That's your BOL box, make sure it's properly mounted and secured. Your GPS tracker box, make sure that is up there, properly mounted and secured. You have a placard right here. Make sure the placard is properly mounted and secured. And it's on the blank side if you're not carrying a hazmat, and that's on all four sides of the trailer. Moving down your trailer, on the side of your trailer, you have 50 to 100% of DOT tape. Must go down the side of your trailer. Make sure the side of your trailer is not missing any rivets. There are no holes, bends, or cracks in your trailer. Your landing gear is properly mounted and secure. Your shoe or sandal of your landing gear is present, and it doesn't have any debris. Your crank handle works properly. It's not being broken or cracked. Let's moving on down. Your cross members under your trailer, or the ribs of your trailer, they're all properly mounted and secure. They're not being broken or cracked. Your side skirt is properly mounted and secure. It's not bent, broken, or cracked, and it's not flying off. You have your side marker light, which serves as your left turn signal, and your four-way flashers and marker light is amber in color and properly working. Under here, you want to make sure your air lines and electrical lines, they're at least 18 inches off the ground. They're not cut, spliced, or anything, and no exposed wire. Your sliding tandem, it's not bent, broken, or cracked. This is what you use to adjust your weight of your trailer. You have 10 locking pins on this side, and you have 2 on the other side. You want to make sure those are locked out. You would check these tires the same way you check your drive tires. They're 230 seconds, and tread depth, evenly worn, 100 PSI, no debris in between the tires. I'll get under here soon. Checking your brakes again. You have a brake disc. You want to make sure it's not blue, bent, broken, or cracked. You want to make sure your rotors are not being broken or cracked. You want to make sure your leaf springs, they're not scissored out of place. Your U-bolts are not being broken or cracked. And your brake chambers are not being broken or cracked. That's pretty much it under here. You want to make sure these lines, these are automatic air inflators. You want to make sure there are no abrasions, bulges, or cut, and they are present if you have them. You have another set of mud flaps back here. Make sure they're not bent, broken, or cracked, and make sure they are not missing. Your door tie back, you want to make sure it's not missing, and it's not bent, broken, or cracked. It holds your doors back when you're backing into a dock. You have another marker light here. It's red in color. Make sure it's properly working. Your ABS light, make sure it's properly working, and it's supposed to go off a few seconds after you turn your truck on. If it doesn't go off, you have a problem with your air brake system. At the top, You have 5 clearance lights up there. You want to make sure they're properly working. You have, some people call them locking jaws, up top and also at the bottom. You want to make sure they are present and properly working. Your handles to your doors, you want to make sure they are present, properly working. Your weather strip that goes all the way around both doors, you want to make sure it's not dry rotted or missing. Your hinges that goes down both sides of your trailer, you want to make sure no mechanics or bolts are missing and it's properly mounted and secured. Your lights back here, they serve as brake light, tail lights, 4-way flashers, and left and right turn signals. You want to make sure they are properly mounted and secured. You have 100% DOT tape on your doors and also 100% DOT tape on your bumper. You want to make sure it's clean, reflective, not missing. Your bumper, you want to make sure your bumper is not bent, broken, or cracked. Definitely make sure all of your bolts on the outside and the inside of your bumper are not missing. And last but not least, you want to make sure your tag is legible and clean. It's up to date if it's not a permanent tag, and make sure your tag light is working. And that concludes the pre-trip.